It's time for The Verdict. The Verdict is a lively discussion of current events and legal issues pertinent to Oklahomans. The Verdict is hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. It's time for The Verdict.
Hello again and welcome back to the set of The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every Wednesday night at 9:30 to discuss topical ideas, sometimes legal issues. Tonight, one that could be both, but really topical for this time.
Tonight we're talking about early childhood education. It's the third show in our series of 3 shows on education issues. And don't think about walking up and turning the dial to something else if you don't have small children at home, because early childhood education will impact you directly or indirectly if it's done well and effectively, no matter what your age or circumstance might be. And it will not impact you if it is not done well. It will impact you negatively if it is not done well. So this does affect you. Stay tuned. You're going to enjoy hearing from Team McCormick.
You'll learn about what we've done in the past and where this is headed. It's The Verdict. We'll be right back with our show on early childhood development next.
During the recent winter storm, KSBI was the only Oklahoma television station to bring you live video from across the state of Oklahoma by using Oklahoma's first and only StateCam network. Meteorologist Brady Bruce was able to pinpoint and clearly show where you and your family would encounter travel problems. You can always view KSBI's StateCam network and get the most interactive weather information available at ksbitv.com. And as always,
we'll keep you updated here on KSBI, your family's weather source.
All children deserve a life with hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
What's the best part of your home business?
Well, the money, the financial security, and the freedom.
The lifestyle, working when and where I want.
Not having a boss.
If you're not enjoying the benefits of a home-based business, then you're missing out on your share of an industry that's reaching $1 trillion.
I went to this website, filled in my personal interest, and their system matched me up with the perfect opportunity.
4 years ago, I had no job and over $200,000 in debt. I went to this website, and this year I should make over $250,000.
I got started only 11 months ago, and I'm up to $5,000 a month.
If you're considering a home-based business, this is the one website that you need to visit. They take all the fear out of getting started. All you need is a computer and the desire to succeed.
My goal for next year is $50,000 a month.
I never dreamed I'd be making $20,000 a month, but I am.
This wasn't one of those get-rich-quick schemes, but guess what? I did.
Go to this website and get started today. The best of your life is just a click away. So go to your computer and log on to this website now.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
We are really pleased today to have Team McCormick, as I indicated in our first segment. It's actually our third husband and wife team we've had join us as guests on The Verdict. And today the subject is early childhood education. We're going to talk first, or I'll introduce first, across the table from me, Peggy McCormick. Peggy is a native of Oklahoma City, is a graduate of Oklahoma State University, where she received her BA degree and her MS degree in family relations. She's an experienced, licensed therapist, now retired, but practiced being a family therapist for many years. She's a board member of the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy. And Peggy, welcome to The Verdict. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
On my left is Bob McCormick. Bob and Peggy have been married for a number of years. I'm not going to say how many, but they can.
It's okay.
Bob is a graduate of the University of Oklahoma, where he got a degree in business administration. He has had a long and very successful banking career. He retired as Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of Southwest Bank Corporation, as well as Stillwater National Bank. And he he also is a board member of the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy and has been a regent for the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Glad to have both of you.
You're welcome.
Peggy, let's define the issue first. What is meant by the term early childhood development?
Education.
Either one, development or education works, either way. And it's exactly what it says. We're talking about developing a child's brain at an early stage. We have a lot of research on brain development now that we haven't had in the past. And what we've discovered is that children will, from the day they're born, their brains begin to develop. And it's important for us to stimulate the child, work on that development so that they will be eager to go to school and ready to learn when they get there.
How early is too early?
First day they're born.
Read to them?
Yes. Sing to them, read to them, talk to them. Little tiny babies, look them in the eye, smile, you know, all this coochie-coo stuff we do with babies. That's helping to develop their brains.
So are we talking about always in a school setting or always in a home setting, or is there a combination that still falls in the definition of that term early childhood education?
Yes, it's a combination. We have the advantage of sending children to school here in Oklahoma at an early age, but they need also that time with their parents, and the parents need to understand the development of the brain and how they can help their children.
Okay. Yeah, I'd want to kick in there and say that I think the statistics tell us about 85% of the brain is developed before they would go to school.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I was telling Kent earlier, I can remember when we went to school, they used to give us IQ tests and then kind of categorize us by how smart they thought we were and so forth and so on. And they thought that was all about, you know, what our genes did for us. And I think we've discovered that most of that is really about what happened at home before we went to school. And so we could really help a lot of people do a lot better if we had a better child development strategy than we currently have.
Bob, let me pursue that with you a little bit further. We do, of course, have preschools around. Some schools offer preschool programs, and of course there is kindergarten available to our public school students. What is the need for more or earlier childhood development?
Well, you know, interestingly, I think this really, what we're doing in Oklahoma now, really started because businessmen began to recognize that the people that they were trying to hire were not prepared appropriately for them to be able to train and to do the work that they wanted them to do. And so they began to look at, well, why is it that our children coming out of high school are not prepared and our schools are failing? What is going on here? And as they examined that, they determined that one of the primary reasons why we were having a hard time is because children, about 25% of the kids, about 1 out of 4, were showing up for kindergarten and for first grade not prepared to do the work. They didn't have the school readiness that they needed. And that only about 1 out of 8 of those children that show up that aren't prepared actually successfully complete a high school education. And so when you look at those statistics and think of the impact that it has on our society, it's absolutely devastating. So if you can move that number, 5%, 10%, it has a very meaningful impact on everything in the state of Oklahoma, including economic development.
So is there no concern that a child might be bored in kindergarten or first grade if he's had a lot of stimulation and a lot of educational opportunities?
Peggy could really answer that better than I could because she knows about the training.
Well, then let's have Peggy answer.
Well,
that's real teamwork.
Okay, all right. One of the things that we know about children is that when we begin teaching them at an early age, anything, you know, putting them in the grocery cart, and as you're wheeling them through the store, talking about the pictures on the cans of the corn or the beans or whatever. It's teaching them language skills. They become eager to learn, and they like learning, and it's fun. And so as they progress through four-year-old program into kindergarten, they enjoy that. They want to learn, and there's no reason for them to get bored. Now the hitch here is, and we are doing this in the state of Oklahoma, is that we must train our teachers to teach young children coming into kindergarten. One of the things that the teachers will tell you is they have a difficult time if half of their class comes in knowing their colors, their letters, their numbers, how to use scissors. The other half comes into kindergarten not ready to learn, not knowing these things. It makes it very difficult for the teachers to join those two together because there's a big gap.
But it can be done.
Oh, absolutely, and it is being done.
Bob, let me ask you kind of a follow-up to something you mentioned in an earlier response, and that is there some correlation, do you think, between effective early childhood education and performance on tests under the No Child Left Behind Act, college entrance tests, success in life thereafter?
Well, there's absolutely no question about that. One of the problems I think we've had as a society is we've tried to deal with our schools that aren't doing very well, is we want to blame it on the teachers or the administrations or something other than the students themselves and how well prepared they are when they come to school and what kind of supervision they're getting at home, what kind of help they're getting at home in regard to their education. And it all starts very early. Maybe if you'll recall from your own experience, and by the time you get to junior high school, you've got a group of kids that you're going to school with that aren't making it. And they're the kids that tend to lead into all the societal problems we have, whether it be drug abuse, alcohol abuse, crime, you name it, and they tend to drop out of school. Well, that failure in the 7th and 8th and 9th grade, which are pretty difficult times for kids, it starts back in the 1st grade. If you're in the 4th grade and you can't do 4th grade work, well, then you're going to start, falling off the path. And then by the time you get to junior high school, then you're kind of a mess. And so it starts right back at the beginning. And if you get it right in the beginning, I know that as a manager, I always felt like people wanted to do a good job. If they had the information, they had the wherewithal to do a good job, they would do it because it's more fun. Mm-hmm. Well, kids are the same way. If you were capable of doing the work, it's more fun to do the work and get credit for it. And so when you fall behind and you can't do it, that's when everything starts going downhill. So that's the way I'd answer that.
Yeah.
Let me jump in and get us to a break. We're talking about early childhood education with the McCormicks. You're watching The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
From Le Visage Day Spa in Norman, we wish you
happy holidays.
And Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leaving it 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go. Wiggins in to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
This is Ag Day.
Tomorrow, our journey in the country takes us to the Golden State, where, according to ranchers, it's the home of the happiest cows on earth. That story Thursday morning right here on Ag Day.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311.
I'm Dr. Greg Cinnamone. And if you're like many, you're sick and tired of your bathroom scale dictating your mood. If you're down a pound, great day. But if you're up a pound or two, or your clothes fit tighter, instant bad mood. If this sounds like you, then I encourage you to step off the scale and into the Cortislim lifestyle. I wish you could hear all the lifestyle success stories because they'd be such an encouragement. People who look and feel great because they've discovered how stress can drive weight problems. They've learned how to create positive change, including their weight, through the Cortislim lifestyle of managing everyday stress through diet, exercise, stress management, and of course supplementation with Cortislim. The holiday season is here, and that means overeating for so many. Don't let stress, poor diet, lack of exercise, and weight gain ruin your holidays. Be a Cortislim success story. Step off the scale and into the Cortislim lifestyle.
Call 1-800-605-1903.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Kent, where to now?
I'd like to direct a question to Bob about the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness. Tell us what that is and what's its purpose and how does it work?
I'll be happy to. Well, back in the year 2000, these businessmen that I talked to earlier talked to Governor Keating about the importance of early childhood and how concerned they were that we weren't doing a good job of preparing children to go to school. And so he formed a task force. And the task force produced a report in March of 2001 in which it set out a number of the issues in regard to the problems we have in Oklahoma and the things that we need to do. Now, as a result of that, legislation was proposed. And that legislation was passed by our legislature. But Governor Keating was unable to sign that legislation, I think mostly because some of the conservative members of his party felt like that it was an intrusion into the family life of people in the state of Oklahoma to begin to get involved in early childhood. And so he didn't sign the legislation that was a result of his own task force report. Well, then when Governor Henry was elected, they passed the legislation and Governor Henry signed it. Now, as a result of that, we have the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness. The state of Oklahoma appropriated $2 million to be the public side or the state side of that partnership. And then they formed an Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness Foundation. And the expectation is that the foundation will raise, as a matter of fact, our goal is to raise $10 million. And then those funds and a public-private partnership will be used to help communities assure that they're doing a good job of providing resources for early childhood education in those communities. And that's kind of a lead-in to Success by Six, which is the agency that I think is being used generally for that purpose.
Well, let me follow up on that just a minute before we go to the Success by Six. How is the fundraising going by the foundation?
Well, we're really just getting started. We're doing a study. The first thing that happened is that the public, I want to make sure I get this right, the Public Service Company of Oklahoma in Tulsa, and of course Pete Churchwell, who was one of the prominent businessmen that was involved in all this, was their chairman. They gave $300,000 to the foundation to get things started.
That's a good start.
We've received $200,000 of it. We're getting another $100,000 in the next month. We're using that money to get organized, to do a study. We've been interviewing foundations and talking to people and trying to determine how we can go about raising this $10 million. But it's still very much up in the air as whether we can accomplish it or not, because of all the issues that you might imagine in regard to, gosh, what are you going to use the money for, and does this make sense? And being a new entity, it's a challenge.
Well, Peggy, what about Success by Six? What does that term connotate?
Success by Six, which is one of my favorite things to talk about, is an initiative that started about 6 or 7 years ago. It's nationwide. The Bank of America gave $50 million to the United Way of America. And this was to be used for, they named it Success by Six programs in United Way communities. So each community could write a grant, apply for this money, and start their initiative. Now, this is a partnership, public-private partnerships, to look at your community and figure out what the needs are that you have to get your children healthy and ready to learn when they enter school. Now, I can speak for Stillwater Success by Six. We have done a great deal of work with our child care facilities to increase the quality. And as we all know, things are different now than they were when we were young parents. There are many more single parents who go to work every day, parents that both, even though there's two parents, they both go to work every day. And so many of our children are in child care facilities, and we need to have high quality programs in these facilities. The Department of Human Services then rates the child care facilities, and they have stars, 1, 2, and 3 stars. So our Success by Six initiative in Stillwater, we have chosen to help our child care facilities, sometimes monetarily, just sometimes through support in the community, increase their stars, as we call it, so that they can be top quality facilities. And in other communities, they've done more work with families. I'm not really sure what there's 13 Success by Six programs in the state. They are very highly supported by the Governor and Mrs. Henry. She's gone around the state and spoken to Success by Six communities about their importance. And we're having a lot of luck. Now, with the new legislation, that $2 million that was appropriated, that then this fall came down to these communities through grant writing again, and exactly what you were going to do with this money. And then a committee of the OPSR, I think, decided who would get what funds.
Bob, the Success by Six program outside Stillwater is located where, functioning where?
Well, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Lawton. Of course, we have Stillwater. Guthrie, Enid. Muskogee.
I'm not sure.
So it's local control.
Well, it is local control. They decide what needs to be done and what the challenges are. And when you think about it, it's very interesting when you think about it. We as a country or a culture, we've organized our communities to educate children from K through 12, and maybe K through 16 in some cases. But we've never thought it was a community responsibility to do it before K. And so what we're trying to do now is to change that paradigm and say, hey, the community needs to get together and make sure these young people are prepared for school so that we have this success we want for them and for us. And so that's really what this is about.
Well, Bob, let me ask you, when you have, we have quite a few people in Oklahoma City who have moved here from Mexico. Maybe the parents do not speak Spanish. The children do not speak Spanish when they're pre-kindergarten. I'm sorry, do not speak English.
Right.
Did I say Spanish? I meant English.
Sure.
But the problem revolves when they get to school and they have not learned English, and here they are enrolled in kindergarten. How important, and is there any initiative out there that could reinforce to parents, the Spanish-speaking parents, that it's important that if they're going to live in Oklahoma or in the United States, that their children learn to speak English before they get to kindergarten?
That's a wonderful question, and it certainly would be a wonderful program to have. And I'm not aware of whether we're doing that or not, but it's a great idea. Because I would agree with you that, I mean, you know, to not be able to speak English and to try to function successfully in the United States would be a real challenge.
Bob, I read an article that you wrote a while back, I think published in the Tulsa World, about Oklahoma's, comparing Oklahoma to activities in other states in relation to early childhood. So often Mick and I are doing shows about how Oklahoma is getting an F grade or doing the worst in the nation on something or another. It's a different story here, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there's some wonderful things that are happening in the state of Oklahoma. We have, first of all, we have all-day kindergarten, and a lot of states don't, and that's a wonderful thing. And then we now have programs for 4-year-olds. Peggy really knows more about it than I do, but we do have and they're volunteer programs for 4-year-olds, in that the parents can decide whether they want their kids to go to school when they're 4 or not. But the services are now available in Oklahoma. And because of all that, we've seen some articles that have been written, whatever that's worth, that would suggest that Oklahoma's in the top 4 in the nation in early childhood.
We're going to have to cut you off because we're out of time, but we will leave it there. Oklahoma in the top 4. We appreciate both of you coming on the show and sharing.
Thank you so much.
Obviously, we're going to have to have you back and get into this a little more deeply, but we appreciate the time that both of you spent with us.
Thank you very much.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
Heritage Hall, an independent college preparatory school. Here we celebrate our scientists, our athletes, our mathematicians, and our future artists.
Our students love to learn. A welcoming school for children aged 3 through grade 12. We are a community. We are a family. We are Heritage Hall.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
OKC Cellular, serving Oklahoma since 1991. The best in wireless sales, service, and repairs. A Singular Wireless authorized agent at 5730 Northwest 39. Call 942-CELL. Happy holidays from OKC Cellular.
Log on to KSBITV.com today. KSBITV.com today. Log on to KSBITV.com today.
A message from the law offices of James Sokoloff on mesothelioma. Mesothelioma is a rare, malignant type of cancer in the lungs, usually associated with exposure to asbestos. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma, call the law offices of James Sokoloff now.
Call 800-496-5437. That's 800-496-5437.
We are back to wrap up another edition of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Today's topic was early childhood education.
Yes, we were very pleased to have Bob and Peggy McCormick come from Stillwater to visit with us about early childhood education, the third in our 3-part series on education. They really know what they're talking about. They're both active in the movement to bring early childhood education. And most impressive to me, Mick, was the ripple up effect, if you will, of what impact effective early childhood education can have on the state of Oklahoma and all of us, our children and ourselves as well. And it's a laudable program that has support a lot of places and is really going somewhere.
We like to pass along information on how you can find out more about today's topic. And if you'll go to the website for Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy, they have a lot of statistics and information on early childhood education. Their website is oica.org. That's oica.org. And of course, if you'd like more information on The Verdict or have an idea for a future guest you'd like to see on a show, drop us a line at our website, theverdict.tv. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next week right here on The Verdict.